on for the Gear Podcast. Coming in hot for 2025, Uncle Leon. How you going, mate?
Bloody awesome, especially after that. That's one of your absolute best intros ever, Troy. How you been? How was your festive season, mate?
Oh, mate, it was stressful. There's two children. So, you know, bit of going to Adelaide to visit family over there. Thankfully, Mr. iPad came in handy, so you just throw that in front of him. Mate, we're a Pokemon house now, so that's all that gets thought about and talked about by my son. All he cares about is Pokemon. And, yeah, so that's been fun. But otherwise, man, you know, I didn't really come to the studio much for about 3 weeks. So I'm officially back to work now, and I have been for like a couple of days. But getting into the swing of it's a little bit hard when you've just had a few days of just, you know, hanging at home and doing whatever you want. So eating nonstop. What about you, mate? How's your Christmas and New Year's and whatnot?
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good. Quiet, which I liked. I didn't have... I think the last gig I did before Christmas was on the 21st, and then I had a New Year's gig, and then filled in for you a couple of days ago.
Yeah, how was that?
It's been pretty quiet. Yeah, it was enjoyable. Actually, I got to use your looping pedal board, which was pretty fun. And may I say, quite comprehensive, where it's just like all the songs laid out. You've got drum beats. It was one of the easiest duo gigs I've ever done because I didn't have to do any work. I was just like, here's the set list and all the tempos and a drum machine, and you just play along to it and get it done. So, yeah.
Leon, let me ask you,
well done.
Let me ask you a question, mate. Let me ask you a little question. Why work? Why work when you can not?
I
you understand what I'm
fully
saying?
Subscribe to that.
So
I totally understand. Why work when gear can do it?
Exactly. I actually was thinking about that the other day because, you filled in for me with that gig, and I mean, just for everyone else's context, the duo gigs that I do and that Leon's done as well, it requires having some manner of rhythm track happening through the whole gig, really. That's what the singer requires, /requests, it's like, it's not his problem, he just make it everyone else's problem. So
exactly.
It evolved from like the old tapping on the guitar and looping that. You could probably do it with a stomp box thing if you wanted to go that route, but if you're stomping with your foot the whole time, it means you've got to lift your leg up like for 3 hours at a time. I just don't want to like pick it up and put it back down again. That's too much work. So looping it was okay, but then tapping on the body didn't really sound like good enough. So yeah, it's evolved a lot, and now it's just it's effectively just drum machines with an RC500 providing drum parts. But yeah, all programmed tempos and drum parts get changed by just a lot of MIDI commands sent by a Morningstar controller. So I gave Leon the board because it was easier for him to do that and just find the song and hit go rather than, you know, doing the loopy sort of stuff with an acoustic guitar and whatnot. But as I was thinking about this, I think I explained to you how it worked anyway the day before, because I finally saw your house, obviously. So I saw you only a few days ago. But I was thinking like, fuck, I really should do a video, like an explainer just for you. But then also it's pretty, like, I'm pretty happy with how it all came together. It's quick and it's easy to do a song, and it would probably be a useful YouTube video. So maybe that's something I'll do in the next week.
I would watch that and understand it.
That's one view.
It's such a good little system with, you know, basically 3 units, all communicating with one another, doing this stuff, thanks to the magic of MIDI. So yeah, Club Cabaret starts next week. It's a 5-week season. We're doing 8 shows a week. So yeah, I won't have a life until basically the end of February. But it's at least enjoyable because there's a lot of new cast and basically the set list is completely different. So I've had to do some work and learn some songs and read a few charts and figure things out, which has been interesting and informative. And I feel like maybe if I do this gig for another 10 years, I might actually be able to read music.
Mate, just put it on an RC500, hit go, and then just stand there like strumming the guitar, pretending. Wait, easy, mate. 2 shows a week, that's a lot.
Yeah.
How long's a show? Is it an hour?
It's more like an hour and a half.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think it's 40 minutes, then a 20-minute interval, then 40-odd minutes.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
2 sets?
Nearly 2 hours. 2 sets, yeah, it's pretty full on. And, you know, there's fire, there's sword swallowing, there's hand balancing. What else is there? Contortion. There's
Mate, I can balance my hands like this.
Yeah, exactly. Can you make your hands fight? It's a correct way to do it.
Righty one.
But yeah, I mean, so prepping for that, and the nice thing about that is like I know exactly what the rig is. I just have to learn the material, and then in this free time, I can just play around with stupid pieces of gear. So I've been borrowing some of your gear and demoing it, which has been fun and interesting to see the reaction.
Yeah. So you got that Pitbull, hey?
Yeah. I mean, let's just delve straight into it, Troy. The Eagles don't have any games for a few months, so we can skip all of that chit chat. The VHT Pitbull, it's pretty good.
You like it?
I am into it. It was interesting approaching it without any preconceptions because I was just kind of like, I don't know, how do I make a good sound? Probably use some greenbacks and play a Les Paul and kind of sounds like a big beefcake Marshall. I'd mentioned in the video that it reminded me a bit of the VH4, but more in like you see, you know, Hetfield and Adam Jones and all these people, Rammstein use the VH4, so you think it's going to be the heaviest thing in the world, and it's just like, it's kind of like a slightly boosted Marshall. And the Pitbull, the things that I liked about it were kind of like that as well.
Yeah, I think well, struggle's probably not the right way of saying it. I went into it with some preconceived notions, and I think it didn't really do the thing I thought it was going to do. I read a lot of comments about it before I picked the amp up. And I've had a lot of anecdotal people saying like, it's a really great amp, and it is a really, really great amp. But I think what you demonstrated, what you demonstrated with it is that it's a really good rock amp, and it doesn't, not that they can't do metal or anything like that, but as a starting point, like treating it like it's a boosted Marshall or treating it like it does rock sounds and not like, all right, I'm just going to make it be a real, down-tuned shug sort of a thing. It's not that it can't do that, but I don't think that's its like one would. Is that the right way of saying it? I don't play golf, but I feel like I've heard that.
I absolutely don't play golf, so no idea.
You live near a golf course now, don't you? Yeah.
I do live near a golf course, so maybe that'll change.
We'll go over here.
Unlikely.
But it's just the dryness about it that people say is it's not a bad thing. Like, it's really cool, and it just means you have to like have control over your right hand to play it. That's the biggest thing. I think as a studio amp, it's been tricky. I've only pulled it up maybe for 2 sessions since I've had it. I've only had it for a couple of months. One of the guitar players I brought it up on, though, I think probably was not the right sort of player and not the right sort of music for it.
Yeah, right.
In that, it was probably just he needed to play into it a little bit more. Whereas I think some amps, like when I use them for sessions, some are just easier than others. I've put the Soldano up, and most of the time people have been able to make it sound good. And Rectos are also the same sort of way, like different, but the same sort of way. Whereas, that amp was a little tricky. The Splawn was a little tricky as well. Some has been a little tricky to get it to work. I'm not sure. It's not just the KT88 aspect of it. Like it's, you kind of just have to respond, and certain players can do it and certain players can't. So it's a different sort of distortion character. And I think one thing I didn't like about it as much when I've had it is I really just used it with V30s, and I think you trying it with greenbacks sounded a lot more the business.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like the dry aspect of it is, so it's an interesting thing with like a metal amp. And if you think of the canonical like modern metal amps, especially the 5150, there's this like bounciness to them, where it's almost like if you imagine the more intense it's probably the compression characteristics and also like the attack and the initial like transient response on a note. I feel like for a lot of metal stuff, which is quite percussive, but again, like bouncy is kind of the only word I can think of with it, whereas like a lot of rock music is that like very, very sharp attack, very like staccato. You think of playing AC/DC, that sound, it's not a bouncy sound. It's very like very staccato, for use of a better term, but a different to like a metal staccato, right? So yeah, I feel like it's because it has that quality of it, where it just like it's almost like a hard on-off switch when you're playing. If you've got that control with your right hand, like the transient response is so fast. It's just like blop, blop. Whereas, with like a 5150 or something or a Recto, there's that like slowness to it, which to me makes me want to like lean into it more and like chug harder or something like that. So yeah, I think it's that quality of it when we talk about, it being dry or something like that.
Yeah, it's a good way of putting it, I think.
Yeah, if you think of a lot of that sort of 90s heavy music, it probably has more in common with that sort of like AC/DC tone than it does with the big scoopy metal thing.
Yeah,
I know like a lot of people mention Helmet and the VHT thing, which, I can totally hear it doing that, where obviously in the video I did, it's just guitar, but I feel like if you had distorted bass and a very, and then a drum sound where you've got a lot of like ultra crushed room sound blended into it, again, that very 90s thing, that would make that amp sound like that. Context would change the way the amp sounds and kind of responds, where it's like, just having that. Versus like there's no fat on it, basically. That's the thing. It's
okay.
You got to put it with other things to get the best out of it.
Yeah, I said I really, really liked your demo of it, and I think it really highlights a place to use it that I probably wasn't leaning towards when I first bought it. Again, I've only had it for a couple of months, so and I've got a couple of sessions coming up that I think it'll be really interesting to try it on again. When I first picked it up, like there was a client that I have that I'm still working with who I've used it on his maybe 2 or 3 of his tracks, and it sounded really cool. But it did take a little bit of tweaking to find the right spot with it, and boosting it as well for that sort of sound was also pretty important. Whereas I don't like. I think if I just had thought of it as a different sort of amp, I probably would have got a different sound out of it. Which it's just one of these things, man. Like it's to me it takes a little bit of fucking people say on the internet sometimes, man. Oh, you just put all knobs. No, not just with this amp, but with a lot of them, and you get the sound that you want. And I think with this one, like, it's a cool sound, but it was not what I was expecting out of the sound. So I just needed a little bit of dialing. I'm really keen to get it back in now and try it with some, like, I'm sure I'll catch up with you sometime this month, and we'll do another gear swap skis. But I've got a hole currently. Can't see it at the moment, but I've got a hole in the rack there where the VHT lives. It has it's sort of like, probably for the next 6 months, I think it's going to occupy slot number 4 in the rack.
Cool.
Because it's quite a tall head shell, so it doesn't fit in the others. So that's where it's going to live, and that's where I'm going to dial it in.
An interesting comment on the video that I did. Someone mentioned that it reminded them of the Boogie Stiletto.
Yeah, I did read that.
How like the Stiletto doesn't it once you spend some time with it, like, it's really good. It's more the JCM 800 style thing, or more the SLO style thing than it is a rectifier. Like, it's just not a rectifier. So when you approach it from that, you're like, oh, cool, I'm going for a rock sound with it. Yeah. You get some really great rock sounds out of it.
Yeah, the Stiletto. Sorry, go on.
And again, there's also the Pitbull with the graphic EQ, which could let you do a few different things. And I didn't boost the amp in the video. I don't think it really needs it. But it's for an old design now, I mean, it's well over 30 years old.
Yep.
It's such a modern amp with all the switches and all the voicing things. It's sort of like the world's come full circle, right?
Well, no, that's like seeing him talk about it too. That was the whole point of the Deliverance, is the Pitbull got so out of control with switching and graphic EQs and all the bells and whistles. Yeah, just wanted an amp that was a little bit more simplistic. So, I really, really would like to try Deliverance. I don't know if there's any around at the moment. I saw one pop up over East.
I got to try one.
Oh, yeah.
I got to try one at Steve's, and it was so good. But again, when I got there, he was playing through it, and he just making it sound like AC/DC or The Who. Like, he had a Sound City and he had the Deliverance, and he had them dialed in the same. And it's like, just a great rock amp. And then you could kind of take it from there. And I feel like the core tone in there is this very classic thing, but then instead of having to smash pedals into it, you just turn the gain control up.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd love to get a Deliverance. It was such a cool amp, and a lot of people talk about the Sig X as well as being another.
Yeah, I don't know that much about
real cool one.
That amp.
Yeah, me either.
I've got the Deliverance module for Synergy, which is really cool. I've used that quite a bit, and I've gigged that a bit too. It's like that dryness that we mentioned is certainly present in that module too, which can be a little tricky to play to depending on like how you control it. But I've really enjoyed that, and it was for a time I only had like I think 2 Synergy modules maybe up until a couple of years ago. I think these aren't all mine, but I currently have 9 sitting here, and we'll get to that in a second. But wow. It was a lot of just testing out between the or just trying to dial in the Deliverance module and the Bogner Ecstasy one to try and find like the tone that I liked for gigging. And yeah, the Deliverance was the one that I sort of went for. I've used the Ecstasy a little bit more recently. It's another thing I'm trying to work out. It's weird. I don't know. Maybe I'm just fucking stupid, man. But I feel like I've got to get to this thing, and I've got to understand these amps, and I have to play with them a bunch. There are times when I've, just set an amp up and like, oh, that sounds great. Like, don't think about it anymore. But maybe with gear that belongs to me, and when I've got a little bit more time to sit on it, I go back and forth a lot where I'm like, is that right or is that right? And how's it sitting? And then obviously compounding that with different cabinets and all that stuff too, it's a huge pain. So, man, this is the thing, like having a lot of equipment, and compared to someone like our friend Michael Torin, who has probably 9 million times more than what you and I have together, it's tricky because like I think you need to treat the equipment with respect and like learn it, and that's something that is such a problem with I guess it's probably more of a problem with internet forums than it is with YouTube videos, because at least when someone does a video you can sort of hear it for yourself like as they're doing it. But the amount of comments that you can read about like positive and negative about any piece of gear, where it's like, it sounds terrible, and I had it for 3 weeks, so I had 3 minutes and I thought it sounded fucking awful. It's like, maybe you just didn't know what you were doing. Again, you got to treat it with this stuff with respect and not just believe that people are putting out stuff that sucks just to trick you. And I'll disqualify that by saying that's not how I feel about any of those pieces of gear that I just had. I really enjoyed the learning side of it. Man, the Stiletto was one where the amount of people who hate that amp, and then once you spend a little bit of time with it, read the manual as well. It's fucking awesome. It's such a good amp, and it's been like a go-to for me for the last like 4 or 5 years. So anyway, moving on, like the VHT, I said I'll catch up with you soon. I'm keen to have that guy in to have a bit of a blast on. Let's talk about some other new gear, mate, because we've both acquired a little bit of stuff. Well, I've definitely acquired a few things recently.
A bit of Santa Torin coming through.
Santa Torin, yeah. Shout out to our very good friend Michael Torin, who generously, I received a package a couple of days after Christmas with some delicious cookies in there, and a delicious, even more delicious Salvation Mods Synergy style MTS whatever module, however you want to say it. And I believe the same was true of you, my friend Uncle Leon. You also got a package delivered. I didn't really say that like a normal human being, but what did you get, mate?
Oh, sorry, the video just cut out for 1 sec. I'll just pick it up from... Yeah, so you got the Dumbly, and I got the big Chungies... The big Chungus.
Let's talk like people, mate.
Yeah, hang on. Truck going past.
I'm going to just say all that again. I'll say it again. So yeah, Santa Torin made a special delivery, and I'm now the proud custodian of a Salvation Mods Humble module. And I believe you also received something in the mail there, mate. Yeah,
so it's like an orange OR120 style module, which is super cool. It's got this 6-way selector on it. And
right.
Yeah, it basically does the orange thing very, very well. I've got a video coming out with it on my channel this week. But yeah, it's sort of like the Doom stoner amp in the real world, because they're so loud and, they have such an interesting character to them. But I think the module captures it really, really well. And it's definitely a kind of sound I was missing in the lineup of amps that I've got. You know, just as soon as I plugged it in, I was like, yep, there's that orange thing that I really like. And it took me back to like 2012, you know, recording here today when we used the Tiny Terror with fuzz pedals and a bunch of stuff, and just got some nasty sounds out of it. I mean, you know, it's a quite a simple sound, but it's so addictive to play. But yeah, have you been liking the Dumble style thing? Because, you know, Synergy do an ODS module, which I've tried and I think is really, really good. But you've been using the TDLX a lot. How do you like it compared to this? Yeah,
the Humble module, as soon as I plugged it in, I was playing 335, and I think I had a cabinet mic'd up in the other room, and man, I just had a moment. Like, it was just so big and clear. I think the thing that impressed me the most about it was like just the sustain on the notes, like kind of, I hate to say this word, but it sort of felt a little bit like it, but it bloomed out a little bit after I played it. So it's probably a thing about clean guitar sounds that I really don't like, in that it's just too, like, they sometimes are too like plinky, plonky, plucky. Yeah. And this just felt a little like thicker and fuller. And it's not the notes, like the transient. It's just the note character over time. It's in the fourth dimension. Is time the fourth dimension?
It can be.
Sure. So that's the part of it that I liked the most. It's sort of like with the Cornford. When I play that, I can just play a note, and I feel like it's not about the amount of distortion that's on it, but that it just hangs on, and you don't have to work for it. And it's a satisfying thing to play to, because you've got time with the note kind of ringing on. That's what I really appreciate about it. And it just makes you play differently.
It's got that grip.
Yeah. So compared to the TDLX, which has been also in the rack for a while, it just was a little bit, it just felt, oh man, I don't know how to say it. It's not better. It's just a different character. And it's something that I think I'm sort of missing in that rig. It's like the TDLX I've used quite a bit as well, and I really like that. But this one I think is going to probably knock that off for a little bit in terms of usability. But that's just the clean sound. Like, putting the overdrive tone in is also fucking awesome. And also a different sort of a distortion as to what I've got in the rack there at the moment. I've got a client who, probably the end of last year, we started recording some guide tracks and some demos for a project that will sort of do in the next couple of months. And I went through, I reckon we probably did about 3 different sessions we did like 15 songs or something. And mostly recording the guides, some acoustic, some electric. But I tried a lot of different amps with him to see what was going to suit, even just at a guide stage. And I kind of struggled to find something that was the most appropriate for the music. And I tried, like, you know, the Cherrytone matchless clone that I've got. And I tried the TDLX module, and I tried, quite a few different options. Like, I tried a Marshall thing. You know, some was clean, some was slightly dirty, but there wasn't really like a clear winner. Interestingly enough, the sound that he liked the most was a dual rectifier, which I was really surprised about, because it's not quite the sort of music you'd associate with Recto, but we really responded to the clean sound on that. And also I think we used the orange channel too for some more driven stuff. But anyway, me playing this module, I immediately thought of him in terms of what we were doing.
Yeah, cool.
And I think that's the sort of sound, like both in the distorted and the clean sound. I think it suits it. And I think partly it's the way he plays too. It didn't, like I mentioned before with the VHT, I didn't try that amp with him, but his right hand control is, not that he's like too loose, but I know the way he strums, it wouldn't fit that amp.
Yeah, right.
So, like I'm not sure what it is about the Mesa that sort of worked the most. I'm not sure if it's like because it's a really big sound and the clean, and maybe a little spongy sounding. Maybe that's also kind of what worked with the Humble module, but will work with the Humble. But that was the first thing I thought. So I'm really keen to get him in probably the end of this month or start of next month to have a bit of play with that. So yeah, man, and like, you know, I'm a synergy man. I'm all about it. the IR, the 20 Sin 20 IR finally is getting launched in a month or something, or this month, which is very exciting. Awesome. I almost sold my Sin 30 like a week ago, and I sort of bailed at the last minute and then changed my mind. I was like, oh, maybe I'll get rid of this and see if I can score a Sin 20. But didn't happen. I've still got the Sin 30, which is okay because I'll probably just try and gig with it a little bit more while I've still got it, because it is such a great product. Great. So, well,
speaking of new amps, Boogie or Mesa, however you want to say it, they've finally done I guess it kind of looks like a revision F or revision G, but they're not calling it that. It's just the 2-channel Recto is back.
Yep.
Which is interesting. They did the 2C Plus, last month? Mm-hmm. And a lot of noise around that one, especially when people don't understand how those amps work and then want to film videos with them where they've got both gain controls and the treble all the way up, and their guitar pickups are this far away from the transformers while they're filming. And wow, it happens to be squealing. Yeah, that's kind of what happens. And also, I don't know. I saw a lot of people kind of bashing the initial videos that they put out. I thought they were fine. Mm-hmm. It was interesting that they didn't immediately start with something that sounded like, Master of Puppets. Yeah. But, those okay, that should have probably been an executive decision. Hey, just have something super thrashy at the start, because that's what everybody who wants one of these is going to be playing. But also, they're very versatile amps. So it's fair enough to show a very wide audience, they're making a product that they want to try to sell to everybody, not just a product to please people who like thrash metal. Mm-hmm. Because you can already get that sound, whether you're using a real 2C Plus or a Mark III or a Mark IV or a Mark V or a Mark 7 or clones. There's that sound is accessible and has been for a long time. So I can kind of understand why they did the videos like that. But then as well, it should have just been launch day, also just have Ola England doing a video, because of course he's going to make it sound phenomenal and play the appropriate things through it. So yeah, hopefully. And I mean, I watched the launch video for it. It sounded like a Recto. And it looks cool. It's got that kind of silver, like the black tread plate with the, silvery chrome chassis on there.
Is that what yours looks like?
Reminds me of Umesh's. No, mine is the kind of metal, the chrome tread plate with the black chassis.
That's right.
They have discontinued the 3-channel multi-watt though, which I thought was interesting.
That's interesting. But I mean, I guess they were out for 15 years or something?
Yeah, let's face it, there's already enough of all of these amps in the world already.
Yeah, we can all own one. Mate, it's just another amp to reissue in 30 years' time, so...
Yeah, exactly.
Mesa's finally reissuing the multi-watt.
Hey, we laugh now, but it'll be a thing, deprive people.
No, but I've got the 3-channel, which I love, and I use it a lot, and as I said, I use it in for sometimes unconventional music. It's not just about heavy metal.
Yep.
And it's really cool, and people hate that amp, and to read a forum post about it, you can't have the 3-channel. You've got to get the multi-watt. The multi-watt's so much better than the standard 3-channel that came out between 2000 and 2010 or whatever the fuck it was. It's like, fucking who cares, man? Just it's all the same. It's just gonna sound like what it is. It's fine.
You plug it in and you want to sound like Linkin Park when you play that amp, and isn't it funny how the turntable, where new metal was the lamest thing you could ever think 10 years ago, and now everyone's trying to sound like Linkin Park again.
Yep. Including Linkin Park.
Including Linkin Park, about time. But yeah, they're great amps, and I hope that they're accessible price-wise, and I also hope that they fix so many of the stupid issues that the old 2-channels have, because they're very good sounding amps, but man, mine has been a nightmare to maintain. The first gig I ever did with it, the amp didn't work at soundcheck because I'd unplugged the foot switch, and there was a short with the relay, and the power supply for the switching relays and V1 is shared, but the rest of the amp has its own independent little power supply.
Yep.
And so that as soon as you broke that circuit, V1 didn't have power. Awesome. So I had to tape the foot switch to the amp and carry it around like that. It was so inconvenient. It sounds amazing, but yeah, it was just so inconvenient. And then, the effects loop was a parallel loop. So I ended up getting that fixed and had the loop modded to a series loop. But now whatever the simple mod you can do is to it, it's like the effects loop send and return impact the sound. It's, yeah, I probably need to actually get that amp looked at again and sort of sorted out, because it sounds so cool, but also there's a lot of things about it where I hear other people's Rev Gs. I'm like, mine doesn't really sound exactly like that. It's got its own thing going on.
I always like
I can hear quite a lot of like, yeah, it's cool. Like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But yeah, it's the sound of an error, whether you like it or not. It's a very cool amp, and I think they look cool as well.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Just quickly on the Linkin Park thing, because for unrelated reasons, I was looking at those the Mike Morin modded Marshalls.
Yeah, I didn't realize there was the LP association there.
Yeah, apparently that was the amp, that one of the amps at NRG Studios that a lot of those new metal bands used, including Linkin Park on Hybrid Theory. So it was a Marshall, not a Marshall. Allegedly, yeah. I don't know. I just think of Boogie's. When you played with Nick the other day, look at my hair all puffed up like that. You can watch on YouTube instead of listening on the podcasting app, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to see that.
Or watch it on Spotify.
Oh, watch it on Spotify. There you go. But yeah, did Nick play you that the new Linkin Park song with the new singer? Because he's obsessed with it. He just won't stop listening to it.
Oh, I've heard it.
Yeah. Oh, and he's like
it's fine.
Obsessed with it. But he said, I just love like the guitar sound from Linkin Park back then. It's just so nostalgic. I just think it's the best guitar sound of all time. Like that guy's got the best tone. I was like, and this was only a week ago. I'm like, well, you just like the sound of dual rectifiers. Like nothing wrong with that. And as it turns out, I'm maybe incorrect, but who knows?
You like the sound of Mike Morin modded Marshalls.
Maybe. That's a lot of M's, 4 M's.
It's funny though, because that sound is so harsh and abrasive. To me, they're really an amp. I can play it, like I like that sound. I can play with it for a little bit, but then I get really sick of it. And then if you start, to me, they're an amp that needs to be layered and they need to be produced, and then it's a thing. And, again, that like NRG Studios thing, whatever they were doing, to me, the classic Recto sound is actually, it's all the other stuff around the amp as well that they were doing to make it sound, probably to make up for some of the weird deficiencies the amp has, but that's part of the magic, right? It's not some amps you play and you just like, cool, that's a recorded guitar sound. You put a mic in front of it and it's ready to go. And other amps, you're like, okay, you got to do these tricks to, whether it's layering or boosting it or the type of mic you use, the type of cabinet you use, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think the Recto is definitely this thing where it's like, you can probably get that sound other ways. It's just easier to use that amp and then use those production techniques to get that sound.
Yeah, I've used it a few times as a layering amp, but I'm sort of off the layering million tracks of guitars style production. I'm really just doing a left and right for everything and of different amps, and that's kind of it. So maybe I'll get back into it, but it takes so much more time to do and edit.
Exactly.
And then I end up having it in there because I feel like it should exist, but then I'm like, it's sort of, smearing the guitar sound a little bit more. It's that weird wall of sound thing where like, if you want articulation, then probably having a lot of the same guitar part played over the top of each other is not the best way of getting that. But, talking about articulation on like the Fryette, then maybe you get that from that. You get your saggy sort of shung from your Recto, and then you call it a day. You go home and make a lot of money to go buy more guitar amps. Who knows?
Exactly.
But I'm looking forward to that. Like in terms of price, like a rectifier here has always been around the $5,000 Australian mark. So surely this won't be any less than that. What did the Mark II C Plus come out at? Did you see a price of that in Australia?
Let's have a look.
Because I feel like we looked up the Mark 7 ages ago, and that was like $7,000 or $8,000. I want to say, like when that launched, we spoke about it.
Mark II C+. I should mention as well, I think I paid 1,200 Australian dollars for my Recto.
Oh my goodness.
And I didn't know what I was buying. The guy was selling two. He's like, yeah, I want to sell one of them. And I just happened to plug into the Rev G first. And I was like, yep, that sounds good, because we recorded Rewind Your Mind with that Roadster.
Yeah, that's right.
Which I thought sounded amazing. Let's see. Can you purchase them yet? That's a good question.
You're talking about the Recto?
35.
Yeah, go on.
2C plus $35.99 US. So
really?
Yeah.
But so like
that'll be around the 5K probably plus here.
No, way more, because when we looked up the Mark 7 when that released, I feel like it was a similar price, and then it was in stores here for like $7 or $8 grand. So yeah.
I mean, it's closer to 6 without the import tax. So yeah, it'll be a $7 grand amp.
Yeah.
Cool. Just buy a Mark 4 instead. You know, don't pay that much and have basically the same. It's like, you know, it's funny how Mark Series amps, yes, they sound unique, but then all the Mark Series amps can do the same thing with like the tiniest variations. And yeah, it's probably, if you're into that thing, you can chase those tiny variations. But a lot of the time it's like the first thing that someone's going to do is be like, oh, turn the 750 hertz slider up because we can't hear you. You know, yeah, that's awesome, but also where the mid's at, bro.
I feel like I'm going to end up with the Mark III at some point, because they come up and no one seems to want them. So
people are into the Mark IIIs. They've definitely got their own cult following, but I too would like to get a Mark III, because the Mark IV is like the control panel's so crowded.
Yeah.
Whereas the Mark III still have that single row of controls. They're great amps. You know, they are. A lot of people. Some people prefer them to the 2C Plus and things like that.
Okay, so then Uncle Leon, 2C Plus is out. Recto's out. What's their next cash grab? Hey.
It will be the Tri-R Axis.
You reckon?
Absolutely not. I can't see them making it. It'd be cool, but what, you're going to sell like 7 preamps to, you know, you, me, Michael Torin, Michael Nielsen, and then 2 people on the gear page? Like, yes, it would be sick, but really are that many people going to want a Tri-Axis reissue when they're probably going to go, oh, but the Mark II C Plus is still a better sound.
But what else?
But having said that, I never thought we'd see a 2C Plus or a 2-channel Recto reissue or a Soldano X88 reissue. So maybe they will. And they should definitely call it Tri-R Axis and have the power amp modeling and the things in there. So yes, I'm just looking up this Recto reissue thing. Where's it at? Anyway, you were going to say, mate.
The old rectum fryer. That's a term that everyone uses, right? Not just an Australian thing?
That's it. That's the term that people who are now between the age of 40 to 55 would use exclusively, with a bunch of other terms that, you know, in 2025, well, you probably can say them on your podcast. It probably just means your podcast sits in a particular part of the podcast spectrum. But yeah, it's just funny that, like, you know, within this niche of people who like really distorted guitars, people will be like, nah, hate that amp, always hated it, sounded dumb. Yeah. And you're like, oh yeah, you know that Winger used it on Paul. You know that Alan Holdsworth was a Recto guy for a while. Like,
actually, I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's treble on 0. That's apparently the thing. At the end of the day, you can play any style of music on any amp you want, you know. In fact, the less conventional, the better these days. So flawless transition.
I was looking at something like this, and specifically this unit, because, mate, you're just so close now. Give them the eyes at Uncle Leon. Give the people what they want. But yeah, when I do sessions in the big studio downstairs, it's big enough to house a lot of people playing live, but there isn't really a great solution for a booth, like separately, if I want to mic amps up. I do have one, but there's like a little airlock which sort of helps to be able to put an amp in there, like a combo or a cabinet even. However, that airlock isn't so isolated from the control room, so I end up actually hearing the guitar quite a lot when I'm recording. It does work, it's like functional, but it's not perfect. So what I wanted to do was, I did a live tracking session on Sunday where I had bass player, drummer, and 2 guitar players all in the studio at once. And in that scenario, the 2 guitar players and the bass player were all just DI'd, and the drums were recording like live, recording like normal audio. One guitar player used a Pod Go, Sounded
nice.
really awesome. The other guitar player went DI, used just the Tonex plugin, and then the bass player was using the Sans amp. So it was all great. Actually turned out really well. But in situations when I've had it's happened quite a lot, I might just have a guitar player who has either a specific amp they want to use that belongs to them or that I would like to hear them use. Just having something that I can bung the amp into, go straight into Pro Tools, would be really useful. So this guy's great because the front panel has presets that you can flick between. So, I'll get to that in a second. The front panel controls are easy to use. The size of it is really easy to use. The fact that it's got a reverb on the front that you can dial in is also really great.
Yep.
So I've been on the lookout for them for a little bit, and also to have something that I can take home, because all of pretty much everything I own is in this studio, and that's cool. But I live 15 minutes away, and I have got 2 young children, so getting here to play guitar for fun doesn't really happen very often, and I would like the option to do that. So if I can drag an amp home and I can go headphones into a box like this, it just means my life is slightly better. So anyway, it's great. You went and picked it up for me because it just so happened to be only 5 minutes from where you live.
Be local.
And I plugged in the other day. So here's the thing, Uncle Leon. I don't understand. Like, I'll say this again. I'll reiterate what I said before. I don't like to believe that a company puts out a product that is like actively bad, because that doesn't make any sense. However, the stock presets that come with this thing are so unbelievably horrible. I don't understand how they get away with it. And like, I plugged it in. I got it secondhand, so I wasn't certain if the original owner had uploaded or changed anything. As I understand it, it's only got like maybe 3 virtual cabinets built into it with the mics and stuff on there. But yeah, the presets some of the presets have so much reverb on them as a starting point, like it's just really drowned out and difficult to play. For anything that you just want like a stock sort of a rock guitar sound, the cabinets sounded really weird and phasey. Like there's a lot of multi-mic stuff and the mics are all in weird positions. And I'm not certain if the, like when you've got a Bluetooth app or a computer app, so you can manipulate like the mic positioning and the relative volume between 2 microphones if you want to. So like, again, technologically, that's awesome. But what pops up, it sounded so weird. So I was going to say, if it's multi-mic'd, I'm not certain if you move like one mic's here and the other mic is like here, if the app compensates for the phase relationship. I kind of assume it would. But it just felt really strange. So I played it through, the Humble module actually was the first one I tried it with. And then I tried a few other modules, and I tried my old Marshall, and none of the amps, it just felt really odd. And I was like, man, I'm really surprised that it doesn't really do what I was expecting. But yesterday, because I plugged it in on Monday, it's currently Wednesday. Monday didn't like it, but I was like, I'll put some of my own IRs in, I'll see what they sound like. So I did that yesterday, which was Tuesday.
Happy days.
Man, it sounds awesome. It sounds exactly like you'd expect. I put the LT TV mix in there, like everybody's favorite IR. I put Michael Nielsen Big Hairy Guitars or Big Hairy IR in there, one of them. And then I put 2 of my own custom ones, which I really like the sound of. One's a Vintage 30 and one is taken... it's a little secret one, actually, which I will release sooner or later. If anyone's interested in my impulse responses, I do actually have a shitload of them that I've got to put online for... And also a lot of Tonex presets, Tonex profiles that I've taken that I've got to get online too.
Share them with the people, mate.
Yeah. Anyway, I put those in there. It's on preset 1 to 4 now on the front, so I can just go bang, bang, bang. But man, it sounded exactly like you'd expect. It sounds like a guitar amp, and that's great. So product is awesome. Product shipped fucking amps are like awful, and I really, I wish I could be positive about that. I just don't get it, and I want to just think I'm the asshole and doing it wrong. I'm hoping that's the case, but I did record a little bit of it down so I could test it, because sometimes I'm sure you've found this as well, but if you just play through studio monitors, you get so much feedback from the guitar being on your lap that the string noise kind of can cloud the way that the guitar sounds if your monitors aren't loud enough. It's like, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just like not hearing this in the right context. But yeah, I did not like it. But anyway, with my own IRs, it was great. And I'll also say there's the option with this thing, which I didn't realize, but You can preview and like import a lot of Two Notes, their other dynamic IRs or Dyne IR things.
Oh, cool.
You can bring them in, and they all sounded really great too, like really, really great. But the three that came
Michael
with
Nielsen ones are awesome.
Yeah, I've got some Mike Nielsen's ones as well. Like I had bought his pack years and years ago. And yeah, I really like those IRs. I've bought only a few IR packs over the journey. Like I've got some York Audio ones or some Own Hammer ones, I think it is, that I've had for years and years. And they're all really great. And the thing is too, like, you know, this is the problem that everybody has when you've got thousands upon thousands of IRs, like which ones are you going to use? Like you cannot possibly audition every single one. So I've got a couple that I know I like the sound of and I've chucked them in there. And I said, as a studio tool, to have this just in the other studio ready to go whenever I need to use it. One thing I will definitely do is put a little note on the top of it, just sticky tape it to say what is each impulse response, 1 to 8, because I know I'll forget. Same as with the IRX pedal, I forgot what's loaded into every channel. And I have this thing too. It's probably not the thing that you have since you're always like plugging stuff in with a USB cable, but like I really hate plugging a piece of guitar gear in with a USB cable and changing stuff. Once it's set up, I just use it and I don't think about it. It's again, these are me problems. It's not a universal problem, but I don't have a lot of spare USB ports on my system here because everything's taken up by various audio gear and whatnot. So I'm like, fuck, I've always got to find a USB slot and a cable, and yeah, it's always a pain in the ass. Anyway, talking very fast, but that thing's really sick. I like it.
Good.
I've sussed it.
They basically have that built into the Rev generator that I've got here, and yeah, like the doubler's pretty cool on there as well.
I haven't tried that yet because I've only been going mono output of it, but I'll try. Yeah, the right. Too.
If you're playing on headphones at home or something, it's pretty satisfying. It's like something resembling a stereo image, and the reverbs are really good too.
Yeah, so, I do like that, man. It's really well thought out. Even the voicing control in the front, like to be able to tweak your tone just enough to make it useful is awesome. Like I'd probably won't gig with it just because I've got other situations where I can a lot of the gigs I do these days don't require a box like this to really get the sound that I need. But there are contexts and people that I know that would love something like this. So yeah, it's great. Yeah. But that's not news. This thing's like 4 or 5 years old. It's fucking wicked.
Yeah. There's a reason they've sold so many of them.
Yeah, but I don't know how
it's with all-in-one box.
Awful fucking IRs like as a starting point. So again, I'm going to hope that I'm the asshole. And apologies, Two Notes, if you do see this and you think I'm a fucking idiot. I don't mean, it sounds great with the IRs I have in there now. But the last thing I got, man,
5 minutes worth of work to set your thing up and have it sound great? Like I can live with that.
Yeah, but the other thing I got, man, I'll quickly slide over and grab it, and everyone can see my shorts.
Dig Dug.
Hey, shorts, boys.
I'm not wearing shorts. I'm not wearing shorts today, mate. It's the mid-20s here in Yanchep, and the sea breeze is in. So
nothing at all. Feels like I'm wearing nothing at all. Don't snap my undies. Here you go. I finally got this little Doug Sansamp thing, which I'm pretty happy about. So yeah,
I love the size of that, man.
It's really good. It came up for a great price. I couldn't turn it down. I certainly don't need it right now. But this thing is great. I don't know if you know this about me, Leon, but I'm a very big King's X man.
Do you like the trio known as King's X who play the rock music?
I've listened to them once or twice, but this thing's great, man. Really into it. Probably the only thing I don't like about it so much is it doesn't really appear to have much of a clean sound. In terms of it's not clean. Well, if it's on, it's got a bit of like dirt in it, like a little bit, and that seems to be something that can't really be taken away. When you put the mix,
why wouldn't you want it?
Yeah, when you put the mix switch on, it kicks in another layer of gain and another. It sort of blends in the dirty sound that Doug does for the King's X tone. So it's cool. Yeah, it's a really great dirty tone. But it's a cool pedal, man. Like aside from the fact it doesn't clean up that well or at all. The compressor in this is really, really good sounding. It's immediate. It's the sort of clean that like I don't play as much bass these days, but it's everything I wanted in a compressor. It's just one knob. The EQ is really like pretty not subtle in terms of what can be done, and the tuner too. Like I used to use a lot more gear to get the same sort of sound that does. Yeah, it's awesome. Awesome unit. So very lucky to have that. I will try that.
I picked up. Sorry, you finished,
no,
mate.
I was going to say, I'm going to try this as a studio thing as well in certain contexts. There are some players that I've worked with who I use a normal sounds amp, like the RBI one, and that sounds awesome. Like that's what I used the other day. But for something that just need a little bit more dirt on, I think this is going to be the winner. So anyway, what about you, mate? What else has come across the bench?
The old little Mua Yellow comp. It's great.
You like it?
Thanks for the recommendation, big dog. Yeah.
No worries, big dog. Join the club. You know, I've got two of those now, and I also have the Ridgy-Dig. So I'm a diamond compressor man, basically.
Yeah. Oh man, it's just like, as you said, you just put it on that makes stuff more enjoyable to play, and you can strum with it, and it's not too like sucky or pumpy or anything like that. And it's just like, yeah, cheap and compact and pretty well made, and kind of one of those like, yeah, everyone should probably have one.
Yeah, it's my favorite compressor pedal I've ever tried. The Mua one and the Diamond one both. Like I don't know, I haven't AB'd them. I don't really care to, but I've used the Mua one on my gigging board for the last however many months, and it's not always on, but anytime I'm playing a clean sound, that's just on, and I don't have to think about it anymore. It's really, really cool.
Yep. Sick.
So otherwise, mate, you just haven't been buying as much gear. You've just been living the high life.
I'm 8 days into the new year, and I don't think I've bought a piece of gear yet. So this might be a new record.
Jeez. And I'll just remind.
I saw someone is selling an Electro Harmonix Pog 2 for under $500. I think it's like $375 locally.
Not bad.
I've already got a Pog, but you know it's a sick pedal. It'd kind of be fun to have two, because that's reasonable.
Yeah. Mate, you bought a house and all of a sudden you're too good for the gear community. That's your problem.
Too good for the used gear market, exactly. Exactly.
And I'll point out again, it was approximately this time last year when I said, mate, you haven't bought a guitar for a little while, and all of a sudden you missed
2024 was a bit of an explosion, wasn't it?
Yep. So anyway, it's mate, he said it's 8 days in. There's plenty of time to go crazy.
All right. Well, mate, let's wrap it up there. We're back, ladies and gentlemen. People were asking where the Gear podcast had gone. It's right here. Thank you for everybody who has subscribed or listened or told their mates about the pod. And
or your enemies.
Coming at you hot and heavy. Or your enemies, you know. Tell your children, tell your pets, tell your nan.
Tell your kids, tell your wife.
We'll see you on the next one.
Peace.